Hello, everyone. Today I am going to be reviewing the fifth studio album by the UK singer Birdy, her real name being Jasmine Vanden Bogaard. Somehow that's pronounced, I don't know how. I haven't heard it said before. I apologize that this video is coming out a bit later than I would have liked. This album came out on August 18th. I am currently filming this way later than I would normally. It's just life. It's just hard to work around. But I wanted to make sure that I did share my thoughts on this record. Birdy is in that list of core artists that I will always cover on this channel when they release a new project. Because I know I haven't been putting out a lot of album reviews lately, and I do apologize for that. I'm just not doing as many as I used to. But I was really looking forward to the follow-up to 2021's Young Hearts, which was a very stripped-back, acoustic, Laurel Canyon-esque songwriter affair. And I think it makes perfect sense that coming off of that rather heavy, melancholic project, that very introspective project, Birdy would want to sort of change gears and maybe make a record that's a little bit more up-tempo, a little bit more optimistic, and just a little more commercial, which isn't a bad thing. It's that perfect blend, I think, of commercial and alternative that she straddles so wonderfully on most of her records. And I think that it's good to change things up for her and for the listener. So Portraits, which is this new fifth studio album, I can't believe that she's put out 4 already, and this is her 5th. But this is her 4th album of all original material. Her first album, which came out in 2011, was only of covers. I believe there was 1 original song on that record, but the rest were all covers. And so, like I said, only a little over 2 years after Young Heart, apparently, which I have reviewed on this channel. I have also reviewed her 3rd studio album, Beautiful Lies, which is one of my favorites as well. I really do love both of those records. And so I will link those reviews in the description. But Birdy took a long time to make the previous album, Young Heart. You know, it took her like 5 years. It was really hard for her to get it out there. But this record had a much quicker turnaround, and it felt a little bit more instantaneous for her. And she also kind of surrendered her, usual style of starting on the piano to write songs. She wanted to get a little bit more comfortable getting into drum patterns and synths and feeling out with a more pop way of making music. And of course, there still is a lot of piano on this record. And there is still quite some melancholy. There's definitely some beautiful ballads. It's really balanced out wonderfully across these 11 tracks. But we open up the record with the most instantaneous and electrifying song Birdy has ever made. And it's one that at first I was maybe not absolutely over the moon about, but over time has just become a staple in my head that has not left for the last 2 months. Paradise Calling, which has a music video that I think perfectly matches the frenetic, wild, running free energy of this track, this pining for a lightning bolt to strike you and make you feel alive. This song is full of yearning, but also full of exuberance. And I think that it's a wonderful way for her to open the record and also change up sort of the style that we're used to from her in more recent offerings she's given us. And so it's a real standout song for me. I really do think that the 80s are always going to be popular for today, and the 80s sound is going to always stand the test of time. It's interesting how so many artists are so into those 80s drums and synths, because you can't get more 80s than this song. There's one other song that also really dials that up. And Paradise Calling, I think it's a little bit simplistic to say that her last album, Young Hearts, was very much a Joni Mitchell-esque record. And you could make the argument that Portraits is a very Kate Bush-esque record. That's a little bit of a simplistic kind of breakdown of it. But there definitely are a lot more parallels there. This record is definitely inspired by Kate Bush, as so many artists are. There's also some Florence and the Machine in there as well, whether she knew what she was doing or not. I haven't heard Birdy specifically mention Florence as an inspiration, but there's several points in the record where I hear a distinct Florence and the Machine sound, which of course Florence is channeling that from Kate Bush. So you see the through line there. So moving forward, we have track number 2, which is the lead single, Raincatchers. And the strings, again, are very much reminiscent of the big bombastic pop numbers of Cloud Busting and The Big Sky, songs like from Kate Bush's iconic Hounds of Love, which Birdy did cite as an inspiration for this record. And it's a really interesting sonic change up for her. Again, there's hardly any piano on this song. And the staccato-ness, it's very electrifying again. But there's an ominousness, there's an ominous sort of overtone to her vocals. Even if the melody is kind of up-tempo and jaunty, it's actually quite dire how she delivers these vocals very like haughtily, you know? There's a heaviness to it until we get into the chorus, which sort of lightens up in her voice. Barney Lister is the producer on this track. Barney was also Lister is a producer on many of the tracks on this record. We used to be the Raincatchers, and we couldn't see what we were running from. You made me feel like nothing really matters. Here in my dreams, we are Raincatchers. Come back to me like it was before. You made me feel like nothing really matters. If we let this run, caught on a river, everything that we left unspoken will never be said. In the music video, Birdy is with this younger version of herself. And she is sort of, I think, through the visuals and the lyrics here, trying to reconnect with her inner child, talking back to her past self. I think Raincatchers to her sort of symbolizes someone who makes the most of a bleak situation and tries to channel that energy into something positive. Instead of, the idea of catching the rain is somewhat the idea of controlling the rain. We used to be like that. In my dreams, we still are. And so I think that's how I would interpret the lyrics here, but they're openly kind of vague. And I think that the sonic structure of this song is one that took a little time to digest for me, but one that really fits well with the instrumentation that she's choosing to use. She doesn't have a song like this. This is completely new territory for her. And nothing else on the album quite sounds this fully orchestrated and intense. So I think it's a really, and kind of in the same exact conversation sonically. So I think that even though it fits with the record sonically, it's a very interesting track for that reason. Interestingly, I remember when Eurovision 2023 was getting geared up, a lot of rumors were floating around that Birdy would be representing the UK with this song, because this song happened to come out the week, I think, before Mae Muller with I Wrote a Song was released and announced, and there were rumors swirling that either her or Rina Sawayama were going to be representing the UK. And I would have loved to have seen Raincatchers represent, but I don't know how well it would have done. I honestly can't really predict. I think that what I think about it is going to be clouded by my love of Birdy. And so it's going to be hard for me to be objective about how well this song might actually do in the contest, but I would like to think it would do really well. But of course, it's a popularity contest a lot of the time. So how well would this do with the public? I'm not so sure. I can understand why Birdy turned Eurovision down. I don't see Birdy ever wanting to do a contest like that. She's just a little too subdued and not wanting to get too thrust into the limelight. I think that kind of is something she's trying to avoid. And I totally understand. I feel like I might be in a similar situation if I were her. So tracks number 3 and 8 are called Ruins 1 and Ruins 2. And I do think they're better played together. I understand why she split them up in the record like that, but I also think they sound really good together. I'm actually not entirely sure which one I prefer. I do think Ruins 1 edges Ruins 2 out just a bit because of that outro. The outro on Ruins 1 is one of the most Florence and the Machine sounding things I've heard from Birdy. Those haunting, echoing vocals are just so sublime. I could listen to that kind of fading chorus of those haunting vocals forever. So I really do love the fade out, more so than I do like the rest of the song sonically. But I would say Ruins 1 just has a little bit more gravitas. It's a heavier version of what we're offering in Ruins 2. Ruins 2 is a little bit more optimistic in the melody. Ruins 1 is heavy, almost kind of gothic in the melody. And that kind of organ that's kind of almost accompanying her in the synth is very ominous. You built me up to tear me down, awakening on broken ground. It's a cold, cold light and will never be the same again. You'll never see me again. You and I, we lie in ruins. I mean, it's a relationship crashing and burning down in the worst way. And I think Ruins 2 is perhaps a little bit less cynical. If we lie here, we made our bed, but if we stay forever in the lion's den, but if we choose it, we can see the light again. I know we can make it out. If we die here, what'll they say? Another young love gone to waste. But oh, babe, I know that we can make it out. I know we're going to make it out. Say we're going to make it out. Are we going to make it out? And if you want to, I'll fall right in your hands. There's a dreamer that wants to believe that we're still enough. You know, I mean, this is turning the situation into a way to grow, and looking at things, looking at the ruins as the phoenix rising from the ashes. So I see why these two songs are kind of 1 and 2. The sort of more negative, pessimistic side, looking at a ruined relationship, and the slightly more wizened, you know, after the tumult of emotion that you have to go through from that, looking at it and saying, okay, how do we rebuild from here? So the most melancholic ballad, I'm actually surprised, is so early in the track list. Usually I would expect it to be closer to the end of the record. I actually wouldn't mind this song ending the record. I think it could end the record really wonderfully, really beautifully. Your Arms is the most stripped back, you know, slow song on the record with just her and her piano. And it's just this heavy, kind of despondent, you know, reflection that Birdy is so well suited for with her voice, to turn heartache into something just so heart-wrenchingly beautiful. Birdy describes this song as being about grief, and so I interpret it as about being losing someone, potentially losing someone, not just in terms of a relationship, but it could be losing a loved one to illness, the heaviest, or to suicide, or to just the cruel hands of fate. I still hold on to the love that you gave. It's all I've got of you now. I will never know you, don't get to understand. No answers to questions, it's too late for that. But I was in your arms. I was in your arms once, just for a moment. So that is a gut punch to, you know, contemplate the bittersweet nature of losing someone, but cherishing those memories of the time you had with them, with all you can, with all you got, holding it close to you. It's better to have loved and lost than to have never loved at all, as they say. So track 5, the second single, Heartbreaker. I wasn't a big fan of this one at first. This has a different producer, Dan Pretty and Mark Crew. I wasn't a big fan of it. I thought it was a little bit discordant for Birdy's style. It took a while for the backing vocals, which I think really now sell the song for me, to really kind of set me into the groove. And now I find the song infectious, and it does kind of, I suppose we need to pick me up after Your Arms, but it's a big about face. Even though the song subject matter is heavy, she sounds perhaps the most, you know, buoyant and lighthearted in the delivery of the vocal and in the chorus and the chords that she has on the whole record. So it's this juxtaposition that's really quite interesting. The music video of her, you know, kind of cautiously sort of letting this Michael Jackson Thriller dancer extra in, you know, it's giving 80s spooky horror nights, you know, representing a stranger, or, you know, someone that you weren't once very close with who's become a stranger because of the distance that's grown between you in the relationship. I think that, you know, at the end, Birdy's the one who sort of disappears, and he sort of replaces her in her own life, working at the coffee shop. And so it shows that Birdy may be the one breaking hearts too. It's not just a one-way street here, you know? I mean, it's acknowledging that side, the sort of vicious cycle of, you know, she admits, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm cautiously trying to let people in, but then I get really scared, and run away before I maybe give it a chance, but maybe they're also no good. I mean, he's dressed as a monster, right? Definitely sonically getting Stranger Things vibes for sure. Track number 6, I Wish I Was a Shooting Star. I definitely need a little more time with this one because I do think that the melody is strong, but I wasn't 100% sold on the instrumentation. Gabe Simon was the producer on this one. So I guess I lied. Lister is not on all of these tracks. Genius, you led me to believe he was. Will anybody ever care as much as they don't? The universe seems unfair. Maybe mine is broke. Verse 2 really hit me like a ton of bricks. Yeah, these confessions on the song, on these songs, they're so heavy, really pull you into that sort of heavy space. But there is, a tinge of hope to the melody in the chorus. I will say, Birdy dropping the S word, it's been a shitty night. She says it twice in the verses, was something I was not expecting. An explicit Birdy song? Never thought I'd see the day. My pearls were clutched. Actually, I love it. It's that raw, The title track, Portraits. The backing vocal, once again, selling the song. Gabe Simon, I believe in the backing, she's singing Dance Some More, which is an interesting kind of bone structure vocally for the rest of the song. We have the glittery piano, beautiful, like sultry kind of atmospheric bass, writing you down like you're mine on the lines of my body. Call me obsessed, but I'd die if you were to speak to me. Out on the street or in my dreams, wouldn't dare to embrace you. No other choice but to watch you and then recreate you. I mean, is she reading my high school diary? Like, that's exactly how I've always felt when I have a super, intense crush, but I am paralyzed with fear at the idea of actually encountering this person. Even though I want to be around them all the time, it's all I can think about. It's this paradox. Dancing for portraits of you in my room. I mean, this sort of teenage moodiness is something that never really goes away in your 20s. And, Birdy is 27. There's such a maturity to the heaviness of the like melodies of some of these songs and those glimmers of like really mature kind of perspectives, even if some of the subject matter at face value is a teenage girl in her room, going in her feelings about a boy in a very high school manner. I think that Birdy does a wonderful job of making it not something I might roll my eyes at, at 30 years old and be like, come on, like we can write more interestingly about this stuff. She does. But it's only part of it is the lyrics. The rest of it is everything she does with the musicality. And the songwriting is, I think, on best display on songs like Portraits. The melody is perhaps one of the strongest, mixed with that really ear-catching vocal hook that kind of backbones the track. So one of my favorites for sure. It's definitely one of my favorites. I've already talked about Ruins 2. So going into Automatic, much more up-tempo, even though we're a little bit more ominous. We're a little bit more in the minor key than the earlier tracks on the record. We've got those 80s synths probably and drums coming in the strongest that they do on any of these other songs besides Heartbreaker. I definitely am hearing the Weeknd influence on this one. Blinding Lights, there's a little bit of a similar conversation, musically, in the chorus. I don't cut through the static. Maybe I think too much about it. If I could love you, Automatic, I would. Which I don't have a problem with. I'm not saying she's ripping off the Weeknd. I'm just saying I'm hearing that. It might have been subconscious, but this definitely sounds like a song the Weeknd would sing. Not lyrically, but sonically, with all the production and everything. Gabe Simon, Dan Pretty, and Mark Crew on producing. I mean, I love the propulsion of this track. Birdy on more up-tempo propulsive tracks is really electrifying. Battlefield, another beautiful piano ballad, but a little bit more of that power ballad because it's got a little bit more of an electronic backing. Actually, a female producer on this one, Anya Jones, which is really nice to see when I see female producers on these tracks. Out here, it's a battlefield, no savior, no yield. Out here, it's a raging war. Is anyone counting tears at all? Apparently, Birdy originally wrote this as a poem and then set it to music later, which is not how she normally works. Which is interesting because I feel like if I wrote a song, I would write out the lyrics first for the most part, and then I would worry about the melody later. But I get that it doesn't always work that way for a lot of artists. And I would tweak it as I'm working on the melody. But I think it's again, wonderful, Beautiful Lies-esque sounding song. It would have fit wonderfully on that record. And then finally, we close with Tears Don't Fall. Again, going back into the up-tempo 80s vibe. A little Cyndi Lauper, though I must admit, Heartbreaker is definitely Cyndi Lauper. Definitely getting those vibes. Those few piano chords just really take us home amongst all of the synth and the drums. Who knows where you begin and where I end? Particles collide, we're never the same again. And I know that you're hurting, but I don't wish we never met, because once you were my everything and I'll never forget. Tears don't fall, we are standing, dust to dust, it was us. We were dancing, tears don't fall, we were happy, look at us. I mean, this is trying to rectify a broken heart. I have no regrets. I'm not going to cry at the end of this because there's too much to celebrate. There's too much to celebrate, and maybe it's goodbye, and that's fine. It's for the best. I'm not going to cry about it, at least right now. So, what a statement record for Birdy. I think that she wanted to go this a little bit more accessible pop route, and the alternative 80s production is something that suits her really well. I think, though, she can suit so many different styles that's not really going to be a problem. I'd like to see her music kind of continue to sort of go down different paths in future records. She's kind of set up this sort of system where she's not really repeating herself. But the through line is that there are still gorgeous piano ballads in there, such gorgeous aching melancholy in there. So that will always be true. The trappings and fillings around it will just look a little bit different. I think it's a strong record. It's not my favorite record. I think that Beautiful Lies and Young Heart, it's a hard, especially Young Heart, that album, as Birdy even says, is so close to her and a little bit more representative of the music she's always wanted to make, that I think it's going to be hard to sort of compare. But I'm definitely pleased with this record. I was kind of unsure what to expect, especially after Heartbreaker, because I was a little bit like, this isn't a song that I feel compelled to listen to a lot. Is this a bad sign? Is the whole record going to sound like that? I didn't think it would. But then we got Your Arms, which I think was another sort of, hey, I still got these very mournful, lamentative piano ballads. Don't worry. So it was interesting how she chose to release the songs she did in what order. And then we got Paradise Calling, which made me much more interested. I was like, all right, I am here for this journey. And I still think Paradise Calling might actually be my favorite. I think Portraits, Paradise Calling, Raincatchers, and perhaps Your Arms are my favorite. But, that's not to say I don't also like Battlefield, that Automatic is in a groove, that even Ruins 1 and 2, even though they are probably the least sonically pleasing songs for me on the record. I don't feel like the melodies are very strong at all. They fit in the cohesion of the record very wonderfully, and I love the ambiance, the witchy kind of darker ambiance, the Florence and the Machine vibes. So yeah, it's a strong record from her. I wasn't expecting it not to be. It's Birdy, right? We're talking about a primo musician here, someone who's trained classically on the piano and really understands melody, but also hard on your sleeve poetry. So yeah, Birdy, well done. I wish you were not so slept on, in the market and in pop culture. This album definitely has a little bit more potential to potentially get her on some playlists. I think Young Heart was going to be a little harder for her to sort of break through with, even though her biggest hit was a Bon Iver cover. But I think that Birdy has a tremendous musical oeuvre behind her and potential ahead of her. So Portraits is a really mature statement record for her right now that is broadly accessible, but within deeply, still deeply moving. So let me know what your favorite songs are on the record. What are your thoughts? Like I said, my other reviews of Birdy's records that I have covered, Beautiful Lies and Young Heart, will be in the description. I have not reviewed Fire Within or her self-titled. Don't actually think I ever will, because I am interested in those records, but they don't do as much for me as her later works. I think she was still finding her groove a little bit. So she's only kind of been getting better, but I still think Young Heart was her peak so far. So let me know your thoughts, and thank you all for watching. Please give this a like if you enjoyed, and subscribe if you are new here, and I will see you all in my next video. Peace, love, and light. Bye.